Congratulations, too. And congratulations. And congratulations, me. So I just wanted to we're making a call to our helpline for WebEx and see if we can get that handled, and maybe just take a couple of minutes, and if we have to, we'll just go on without the WebEx. We still would be alive, on the community thing.
Or people would have dogs on chains that didn't necessarily end at the alleyway. And they'd lay in wait for you to get around the corner.
Answer for you.
You never know what I could be asking for. Randy's never gonna ask you to do anything too hard.
Oh, yeah, see, this isn't gonna help because I'm stuck. Modern technology is great when it works.
This feels like today.
It does feel like today. Should have been a Monday.
Yeah, he breaks through that fence all the time.
She's probably at a Braves game. That's where they're going.
Yeah, I know.
She's a little busy.
Door, he rips bumpers off of cars like that all the time.
He's gonna remote in.
He's no threat to you, he just hates cars.
Do that.
But can they still they can still record.
Oh, yeah.
So really, if we can't get this on, everybody important is here.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can start with the things that are more legal,
Yeah.
kind of get those out of the way.
They're gonna just start, yeah, because I can't get the WebEx to work.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's that authenticator
It,
app.
it is.
And you have that on your phone?
Yes, but the problem is I'm logging in as someone else because she's on vacation who set
So
up.
that won't work?
So it won't work.
It definitely won't work.
So we're really stuck.
Okay, thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to be shuffling around our agenda a little bit to kind of get some of the legal type things dealt with first, in hopes that other people that aren't or here or might be on WebEx will be able to join us eventually. So welcome. This is the April 6th meeting of the Economic Development Committee. And there's Brad.
Authenticator, and obviously I can't, it's not going to send the number to me at all.
Okay. Okay.
Well, it's giving me a number right now.
Excuse the chatter and whatnot, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our 3-1 meeting of this year. Do I have a motion to approve that? I have a motion from Alder Rasmussen. Is there a second? I have a second from Watson. Did anybody see anything in the minutes that they had concerns about?
And
Seeing nobody? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you. I'm going to, let's do 2 and 3 now, do you think? Okay. Number 2, discussion and possible action on new standard deed restrictions for the business campus.
Real simple conversation from our last meeting. You remember you reviewed these. After we reviewed the standard deeds, we talked about the ones for a different property for Jason Armani's. Based on that discussion, we talked about having a change made to number 14. That's highlighted in your packet today. So all we're looking forward is the approval of that, moving that forward. Any questions?
Well, I was going to ask, everybody saw the changes highlighted in our packets. Anybody have any questions or see anything that was wonky to them?
I'll move to approve.
All right, I have a motion to approve. I have a second from Killian. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Number 3, discussion and possible action on approving termination of recorded deed restrictions and recording set of revised deed restrictions for 9913 Innovation Way for Badger Liquor. You got
So,
this one,
yeah,
too?
so real simple, you remember back to our discussion about the standard deed restrictions, timing-wise on everything. We're not going to go back comprehensively to all the existing businesses that we have existing or deed restrictions for. Badger Liquor's a little different. We were in conversations with them. They like the new deed restrictions. Based on that delay that happened last month with the overall approval, they've asked that we come back and record the new updated for their property specifically.
Okay. Motion from the committee? I have a motion from McElhenney. Do I have a second? Watson has the second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Want to go to 8 and 9 now? Or,
Sure, yes.
okay. I'm going to jump down our agenda to the addenda, as soon as I can get there. There we go. To number 8, discussion and possible action on approving the WIS-DOT Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP, grant application to create a section of the Business Campus Trail System between 72nd Avenue and Innovation Way. Mr. Lentz.
Thank you, sir. We're just looking for a resolution of support for our application to DOT. This would be an 80% grant from the DOT. It's just, at this time, it's just a letter of support. It's not a budgetary commitment. We're just part of the application that we're making. There's a map and resolution in the packet for more information, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Committee. Was that a motion? Or a request to speak? Have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some questions on this. Is this the business campus trail that we had talked about, that in the language would require eminent domain, even if eminent domain could not be used for a trail, or is this?
This is not that
This is
one.
not
would,
that.
that would be for 72nd Avenue.
Okay.
This one would run perpendicular to 72nd Avenue. There would be no real estate acquisition for this particular project.
Excellent. And then a second question is, this grant is for alternative transportation
Yeah.
options. Is there any opportunity cost associated with this in terms of if we apply for this use, we're not using it for other possibilities?
I'm not sure I understand your question. It's a transportation alternatives program, so it's for transportation that's not specifically for automobiles. It's for other modes of transportation.
Sure, I'll distill it and be a little more explicit. If there is a consideration set of possibilities that this grant can be applied to, could you list some possible other examples? And after that, would applying for this grant then be an opportunity cost in terms of they would be mutually exclusive, or is there the option of applying for this type of grant to also apply to those possible alternatives?
I still don't understand your question. I don't know.
Okay.
Alternative grant sources for this money, is that what you're getting at, or?
Could you give me some other examples in which this grant could be applied? What would be some other possibilities that this grant relates to?
Sure. It's for any sort of multimodal transportation, multi-use paths. We have applied and received it for Safe Routes to School funding as part of, it's a somewhat separate pot of money, but it's under the same umbrella of funding. But it's mostly for bike and ped infrastructure, whether that's trails or on streets, but those types of accommodations, I guess.
And then if we do this and this is successful, does it exhaust those kind of grant opportunities with this for the foreseeable future, or are we able to apply for other applications in the future?
No, we can apply in the future. Actually, 72nd was funded with this same pot of money. And we have applied for this particular segment in the past. We weren't awarded, so we're reapplying for the same segment. There's no limit on how much we can apply. The DOTS cycles every 2 years, I believe, that every time a cycle opens, we can apply for different projects that we may have. This was the one that we felt was the best match for this particular time to apply for this money. So if something comes up in the future, we can certainly take a look at that and see if it's a good match for this particular pot of money.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. This grant opportunity is one that we are really a fan of in SISM, especially when it comes to walking and bike trails like this, where it eliminates conflict between bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles, especially out in this area, truck traffic. And so this would be a safe refuge for, there's housing subdivisions near the business campus and, young families that are out there with all sorts of things like bicycles and strollers and walking and whatnot. And so to eliminate that conflict between them all and make that a safer area, I would certainly support this application. I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? I have a second from Watson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you. Number 9, discussion and possible action on approving the Second Amendment to the Wausau Opportunity Zone, WAS, Development Agreement. Director Brodick, you want to take this first?
Sure. So basically what this is doing, you have a memo in your packet that explains the goal of the Second Amendment and the associated easements with it for the parking lots 1 and 2. But basically what it's doing is cleaning up title to the property for future redevelopment purposes. So you can see all the details in bullet points in that memo in your packet. I did note there is a timing consideration with this, and we, before it can go to council, so even though we're considering it in economic development tonight, it will go to council on May 10th is the plan after other entities that have interest, including Wausau Waterworks, the Transit Commission, and the Community Development Authority, repeal their various interests in this parcel or in this property. So, and those will all take place, we hope, in April is the plan. So if you have any questions, I am happy to address those. We also have Joe Mella, who's the attorney for WAS, and Chuck Dorsey in the here, and Attorney Jacobson can assist as well if we have any specialty questions.
Okay, I think Alder Rasmussen has a question.
Well, a comment, actually. We had also looked at this particular item in the SISMA committee as we were looking at the deed over that needs to happen for the infrastructure in here. And so we had looked at these same maps, recognizing that the lot lines and the air rights need to be cleaned up so that that stuff all gets in the appropriate spot and so that we're not developing in one another's territory. I think important to recognize that we talked about in SISM with the right-of-way that we've requested from WAS that they deed over. A large percentage of the former mall property will be returned to us to use for public purposes versus private development purposes. So I think we're on the right track with getting this cleared up so that then when they go to market the parcels, they're marketing the right legal descriptions. So I'll make a motion that we approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? I have a second from McElhenney. Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Alder Killian.
Yes, Ms. Brodick, you said there was some time sensitivity here?
Yes.
Could you further explain that?
I think it's basically we're trying to get this cleaned up so that when, as Alder Rasmussen was kind of saying, when WAS goes to redevelop this and actually put some plans into place with the developer, that they know exactly what is their property and what is ours, and how those legal mechanisms are working. So we anticipate redevelopment requests or development requests coming, I think, in May, early summer timeline. So we're trying to get this cleaned up before those development requests come to this committee and others and the council in general.
Thank you. There seems to be a lot in this agreement, and in terms of timing, the packet did come out a little late in the game. Given that, I would suggest that the committee is allowed more time for review. Do you recall what time this packet had come out?
We put this packet out in multiple phases. So this one, I think this item came out at, I want to say like, I don't know, sometime yesterday afternoon. I don't recall the exact time. Like I said, we had, I think, 3 different additions to this packet, and I was sending them as quickly as I got them. So what I believe I noted in the memo, we have, city staff and WAS and their council, we've been working on this back and forth for several months, trying to kind of nail this down. And there have been a lot of layers that have been peeled back over that time, including all of the interests that need to be repealed to be able to move this forward. So that's been part of what's taking so long, but it's also, I guess that's all to say that it's been vetted pretty thoroughly by various city departments and Wausau Opportunity Zone. So we feel very confident in moving this forward. If if committee wants more time to review, that's certainly up to you. But know that there's been a lot of due diligence with each entity to move this forward.
And thank you for your efforts, and I know there's a lot going on, and sometimes it takes longer to get the packet out, but I do think, given its significance, it would be useful and appropriate for the committee to have some more review time. Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. Also, given the need for, we're at the cusp of the start of construction season, and if we are planning to even start with temporary infrastructure or marking of where those lines are going to rest, we need to get that moving and stay on schedule. So the vast majority of the content in the agreement remains unchanged, correct? Other than clarifying the lot lines, the air rights, the delineation of where the utility easements were and now need to be. That really is just readying the property primarily for a lot of our efforts as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to set that, because there's a lengthy bid process that has to happen if we're doing that work as well. And if that's set to get underway this summer, we need to get going.
Yeah,
So-
in reviewing and putting this memo together, I did really touch on the most substantive points, which you can see are pretty minor, honestly, or very few of them. So there is a lot that's in here, to your point of just kind of cleaning things up and reiterating some of the, or putting a fine point on some of the things that were in the first, or the original development agreement and the First Amendment.
Okay. I think we should move forward.
Thank you. One question I noticed on the footprint, and I'm not really talking about the buildings that might change this or that, might change, but there are, the streets that are, not there now but are going to be there, they're referred to on the illustration as proposed, are they not?
They are referred to as proposed, yes.
But are they now set in stone?
They're not set in stone yet. We're still having meetings about what
Okay.
the exact configuration. You can really, street design, you can nail down to a really fine detail, it's within feet, and then how much of this, how much of the footprint goes to this versus this kind of a thing. So it's still proposed.
Okay, thank you. Alder Rasmussen?
Yep, I guess just to clarify that infrastructure, where we left off in SISM is that we have selected a 78-foot right-of-way. And so what's left to do is to design that right-of-way so that it's not asphalt jungle, so that there is bike accommodations, that there's walkable accommodations, that there are benches, and that there's decorative elements, and so that how we use that 78, the 78 isn't changing. But, what we decide we're going to put in there for aesthetics and walkability, which is key to, I think, a number of us attended a meeting last week talking about walkable cities and the economic impact they have. This is really the first proving ground for that. And so how we use the 78 feet is yet to be fleshed out, but the fact that there will be 78 is not changing.
Could I see that
Yeah.
map, please?
These two.
Yeah, no, this one is good. But where it says proposed Second Street and proposed Third Street and proposed Jackson Street, the way they, the way the one meanders a little bit and the one where it specifically is going, those footprints are set? Or might those be changed?
I think those are pretty set. I'm trying to recall exactly where internally, where we left off with Tool is I think that, we've been looking at this same configuration since I've been involved, which is since I started in August last year. I don't know if SISM has had any other discussions, but this configuration of the streets has remained unchanged.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No?
Thank you. Guess we'll go back to page 1, like Paul Harvey. Guess we'll tackle the RFP.
Sounds good.
Item number 4, discussion and possible action on RFP for 180 East Wausau Avenue. Director Brodick?
Sure. So Randy Pfeifrick has been doing a lot of the work on this RFP. I will kind of set the stage. When I started, we've had a lot of interest in this property, and we've just kind of said, okay, well, when we set internal priorities for the year in our department, we looked at this property as one of those priority properties, in part because of where it's located in the city, and in part it's because it's the only commercially developable building that the city owns right now. So we looked at different uses and what this can be used for. Randy, I think, is going to touch on the zoning that we're pursuing for this, and then one piece that I want to make sure to point out is in the RFP, we do ask that the end user accommodate a shared parking use with Athletic Park for at least the next 2 years while we develop that North Riverfront area. We have an agreement with Athletic Park, or with the Wisconsin Woodchucks, Mark McDonald, that we will provide 150 new parking spaces by the end of the year. Because we aren't doing permanent new construction in that area by the end of the year, we need to accommodate with some temporary spaces. So this, and that parking lot was part of the temporary space, or the temporary parking that we were going to provide him. So the parking requirement of this RFP is meant to accommodate the development agreement requirement, or rather it's an amendment to a development agreement requirement for that stadium. So, take it away.
I just wanted to make sure that it is worded as a requirement. I thought at one point.
You got it.
Thank you. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I thought at one point there was like the developers were being asked to, keep it, under, keep it in their concern, that they address the concern or whatever, rather than as a requirement. If that is the case, I just think we have to make sure it is totally a requirement.
Yeah, I'm reviewing the language right now, and I know Randy's worked more on this, so Randy, if you know off the top of your head, feel free to call it out.
For the parking, that's
Right.
in here.
It's whether it's worded as a requirement is, I think it says allow for,
It
take into
says we have an
consideration.
agreement to allow.
Yeah. And, we have a certain requirement. This parking lot is currently being calculated into that agreement and what's necessary. So, especially for the short term, it's going to have to be part of their plans. And part of the plan in putting this RFP together was getting all that information out front to people, making sure that we're doing our due diligence as a staff. So as part of this, we worked with engineering, attorney's office, finance, everybody that we could, to make sure that we're pulling all these different pieces out so that when we do have a developer coming in, we can have a clean process that they understand what's out there. You'll see there's different information about the environmental that's already been done on that property as well. And we'll include a link to that previous report as part of it, so anybody can look at it, trying to take away any issues that somebody might come up with. We don't want to see obstacles during that process. And one of those was working with zoning and taking a look at what it's currently zoned as, and where we see it going in the future. So as part of Plan Commission, they've started that process of having the property rezoned. It's currently heavy industrial. We don't see that as a viable use of that property going forward. So what we're in the process of doing is having a rezoned to urban mixed use. Feel that's a much better land use for that property and what you're going to kind of see between Athletic Park and then transitioning to the riverfront. That'll take any questions.
And, it does make reference to basically a developer can plan to repurpose the building or could plan to replace the building, but the parking area or at least the square footage that we're talking about would still be come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the criteria we even talk about that there's going to be parking available, and that'll be something that we weigh as part of the responses. I mean, I fully anticipate that the building will get reused, but if there's some great plan out there that somebody wants to come forward with new buildings, we're open to hearing it.
Super. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I like the fact that we've allowed for some creativity on the part of the developer as far as the use. I do have a concern with that building in terms of aesthetics. We're looking for a higher level of urban design to comply with our urban design standards than what this is. I mean, if it has good bones and somebody wants to reuse it and, whatever, but I think then it should be clarified that we're looking for a totally different aesthetic on the outside. There needs to be a heightened level there. I mean, we're not in the metal industrial building business down there. And, we're looking for a higher level of all of it than what this is sitting there now. So I think we should be clear about the urban design standards and really what our expectations are. I thought we were clear, when we first started down this path with WOW, I thought we were clear about metal siding then. And we had some back and forth about how that turned out. So this one, we've got to be clear because it's kind of the same thing.
Should that be in the form of an amendment to this to kind of clarify, the stress that you want to place on that?
I don't
point?
know that we want to necessarily need to vote on how this gets set up, but I think that if we agree by consensus that we want to issue a directive to staff to insert verbiage in here about urban design standards and what we expect on the riverfront in terms of materials, I think they can work that out, and, whether they want to work it out and release it or then bring it back for us to look at, it's totally fine, but
Okay, thank you. Did we have a motion?
not yet.
Okay, I would take a motion.
I'll make a motion to release the RFP following clarification by the staff in the verbiage that we're looking for a different level of design quality on the exterior of that building.
Okay, very good. That should take care of that. Do I have a second? I have a second from McElhenney. Further discussion? Alder Killian?
Just a couple of questions. I think I know the answer to the first one, but for the benefit of the public, this building, the former quote-unquote Wausau Chemical building, completely separate from the former actual chemical storage buildings, correct? This has never been used for such purposes like that?
I can't speak to what it's been used for in the past. I understand it was used for storage. But, and going back, the bigger concern and looking at the environmental, the phase one that was completed, there wasn't any concern that came up as part of that.
Well, I don't place bets on our phase ones that come out of City Hall. I may bet against them given their record. But that aside, given the history, is the parcel separate from the formal defined Superfund site? So can you confirm that since it was a separate building, it is not in any way associated with the Superfund?
Yeah, so these are two different properties, and that's something we wanted to clarify as part of the RFP. There's the bigger building, and then there's this on the other side of the street on East Wausau Ave.
So I get a definitive yes on that, yes?
I haven't done enough research on it to give you a definitive yes on that.
Well, I think if it turns out to be yes, I'd be in favor of this. So could we please just put on the list of things to do before this goes out to confirm that it is in fact not part of the any set of properties that are in the EPA's Superfund site? which is called Wausau Groundwater Contamination, the Superfund, yes.
Yep, I can look at that for
And
you,
I
definitely.
think it is indeed not in that site, and I would just want to confirm
Yeah.
beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the committee? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Number 5, discussion and possible action on approving Second Amendment to East Riverfront Declaration. And we have Attorney Jacobson as the lead on this. What's that?
I can, I just put both of our names down, but I can take the lead on this,
Okay.
and then Attorney Jacobson can chime in if there's anything I miss. My memos have gotten all out of order here. So, basically, what we are doing, wow, they're really out of order. So what we're doing with this, though, is, so I'm going to address kind of both of these items, both items 5 and 6 together, because they really kind of touch on each other. So with the East Riverfront declarations, all we're doing with this is cleaning up the lot lines to reflect the lot that is designated in the First Amendment to the River Life Condo Agreement. So that changes almost, I think it's a 0.1% of a property proportion for River Life 1. It changes, I think, a couple things for River Life 2. In your memo in the packet, it's all bullet pointed out as to how this, like what exactly these changes are and how it affects it. It's pretty administrative. The reason we're doing this, and this kind of fell off of radars when we were, because the First Amendment to the River Life condo was taking priority, and we were really focused on that. So basically, before they can close on this second phase of the River Life development, we need to, or I guess simultaneously with that, we need the Riverfront declarations amended to reflect the actual property proportions. So that kind of leads into the Riverfront, or the River Life condo agreement, the Second Amendment to that, because that condo agreement, what that's cleaning up is the closing language states that it's on or before the commencement date, which is April 5th, or I'm sorry, at least 10 days prior to the commencement date, which is April 15th. And we clearly will not be meeting that deadline. So because we're considering this today and it's 9 days prior to that. So what we are doing is bringing the declaration here to for approval, and then the agreement, we're changing the language from at least 10 days prior to April 15th so that we are in compliance with the closing deadline. And then that agreement, you know, in basically writing the Second Amendment to the development agreement for the condos, we looked at it and said, well, the temporary access easement no longer needs to be in place because the Fulton Street extension is done. So that concern is taken care of. And then I think, as exhibits, we have attached a temporary construction easement, the water main easement, and an electric and irrigation easement, which were contemplated in the original development agreement, but not, I don't think we had any actual easements in place. So this sets those easements in place. I will note, and I did note this in my memo, which again was a late update, it was, I think, the final update to the packet last night, is that the developer did not have a chance to review this, but the developer's counsel has reviewed and been in communication with our counsel. The developer himself was traveling at the time and not, I don't know exactly, I can't speak to the communication between him and his attorney, but I just wanted to make that note. So.
Okay. Just going through the packet, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and appreciate you going through it again. Is there a motion from the committee? Is that a motion, Mr. Alder Killian?
It certainly is.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second from Watson. Any discussion? I'm seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Number 6, discussion and possible action on approving Second Amendment to River Life Condo Agreement. Director Brody?
I think I kind of covered it in my
Yeah.
last address, so unless there's any further questions.
Nothing to add?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor? I have a motion from Alder Killian. Do I have a second? I have a second from McElhenney. All right, we're spreading the wealth tonight. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that brings us to our adjournment. Maybe, is it possible I might, Attorney Jacobson, just have a little say before I ask for adjournment?
Of course.
Oh, thank you. Didn't want to do anything untoward. Not with the attorney right there. I don't have any prepared remarks or anything. I didn't even think I was going to say anything, but this will be my last ED meeting. There's other meetings yet to happen before I'm out of here, but I'll just say it's been 8 years I've been on this committee. It's been an adventure and an education, to be sure. It's been an honor to chair it for, I don't know, 2-3 times? I've lost count. It's just, I think it's a very important committee for the city because it deals with a range of issues from, we're not really the finance committee, but we have to talk about money and things and city participation and things like that. But it also, it boils down to things like visions and branding and what are we trying to accomplish on a quality of life scale and meeting all needs scale and things like that. So it's really been a joy to be on this committee. I will miss the work, but I'm ready to not be doing it anymore. So thank you so much. I would take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Watson, second from Rasmussen. All in favor, say bye.
Aye.